So, what is nightlife? Okay, this might blow your mind, but it's life that happens at night. All right? All right, good job, guys. I think we're done for the day. That concludes this lecture on nightlife. I hope you learned a lot, and goodbye. I'm just kidding, of course. If only it were that easy. We still have a bit more to cover in the lecture. So the main difference, the functional distinction between everyday life and every night life is literally the fact that it's dark outside. It changes so much about the discourses and power relations we encounter at night compared to the everyday topics we've been covering throughout this course. Nightlife can be conceived as a series of overlapping rituals such as I said, the rite of passage from youth to adulthood, the courtship ritual. Nightlife can also be seen as a competition to some degree, as a hunt or the chase, as it's sometimes referred to. It's also a bonding ritual. It's a way of getting closer to people you're already close with and making memories. So this involves participating in pre-drinks and drunkenly singing songs together and playing drinking games and dancing in a circle at the club or taking cab home together. Some of your closest friendships will be formed and or solidified through nightlife. And as I just alluded to with drinking games, nightlife can also be seen as a form of play. Nightlife is kind of like a playground for adults. Even if there's no formal play, like it's not an actual arena or court or field, there are all these unspoken rules of engagement that the players must follow, and all sorts of notions of playfulness, like playful flirting or playing hard to get. Nightlife also allows us to play with our own sense of self in a relatively consequence-free environment. Like I said, nightlife is like a playground. So this is a time and place that allows for safe exploration and experimentation with one's sense of self. And thus nightlife can play a role in our identity formation. As we'll discuss later, the anonymity, the anonymous nature of nightlife, the fact that people who see you at night aren't the same people who see you during the day, and thus your reputation, your daytime social reputation isn't at stake at nightlife, so that you can use that opportunity to try on different masks, different styles of self, and finding yourself, kind of extending beyond what you're comfortable with, beyond your comfort zone, your safety zone, which can lead to forms of personal growth and identifying aspects of yourself that you may not have known you had from your daytime life. The other side of you, so maybe your risky side or your adventurous side or your confident side or your sexual side. So that nightlife can be very formative in terms of shaping your identity and who you are and who you identify yourself as. And this facilitates that rite of passage from childhood to adulthood. Just like schools facilitate this transition, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, nightlife is also a facilitator of that transition from youth to adulthood. This one is a bit later onset of a rite of passage, like school as a rite of passage that starts very early on in life. Nightlife as a rite of passage starts around 18 years old or maybe a bit younger if you have like a fake ID or something or know someone. So it's more of a delayed rite of passage that starts around 18 and can extend into one's 30s even. So as to let people gradually grow into their adult social roles. So that school isn't the only thing that turns us from children to adults. It's all these discourses, all these practices, all these environments that converge upon us as we grow in life. Alternatively, we can look at nightlife as a mere product of material culture, of consumer culture and capitalism's imposition on people to consume and buy constantly. It could be seen as a way of extending capitalist economic relations from the daytime into the nighttime. So the time that was traditionally spent engaging in community festivities or sleeping, capitalism and material culture have infiltrated nighttime so that you can consume at all hours of the day, 24/7. If you want to be a consumer, if you want to buy something, you're not limited to when it's bright outside. There's a whole nightlife economy that continues as it gets dark, with all sorts of layers of relationships of buying and selling and producing and consuming. Also, nightlife, by virtue of being dark outside could be used as a time for illicit activities, as a time for eluding the law and police and government and doing things that wouldn't be allowed during the day, but it's harder to get caught for at night. One, because it's dark outside, and two, because there's less people outside. A lot of people are sleeping or staying in. And as such, nighttime is often seen as a more dangerous time, as a time when not only epic things happen, but potentially when bad things happen too. So notice that discursive association. Nightlife is potentially a time for rebellion and transgression and for doing things that the powers that be don't want you to do. So then, conveniently, coincidentally, that time for transgression is associated with a time for danger and for not being safe, and you shouldn't be out during that time because the powers that be want you at home or consuming in authorized ways and not using that time and that opportunity for doing things that undermine the powers that be. So there's a tension between control and resistance, between extending the disciplinary mechanisms and effects of disciplinary social spaces into the night. So those effects of discipline are still there for people in those spaces, regardless of whether it's daytime or nighttime. Versus resistance to discipline. It's harder to do during the day, but the night affords more opportunities to resist the disciplinary power that's imposed upon us and instilled through us through these spaces we occupy at night.